Welcome to the show. Today, we're joined by Andrew Clark, an expert in logistic industry. Andrew is a managing director of Logistic Cloud, brand new company that specializes in sales and implementation of a cloud-based logistics software. He's also a founder of Logistic Help, platform designed to assist logistic businesses in improving their operation. Andrew's vast knowledge and experience in the field make him informative and engaging guest. Listen in as we discuss the latest trend and technology shaping the logistic industry. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hello, Alexis. Thank you for having me this morning on the podcast. I'm feeling great.
Thank you for coming and spending this time with us. The topic that I have today is the power of cloud logistics software for your business. But before, give us a little bit more about your history and where you at and how you start this business.
Sure, thanks. So I've obviously been around for a while. I really cut my teeth working in warehousing as an operational manager. I used to work for a big global business called Baxter Healthcare, which will be familiar, I'm sure, to some of your audiences. They make intravenous fluids and products for hospitals. So I worked in the warehouse in Australia, managing a team, driving a forklift, picking orders, getting the work out to the hospitals in what was a very demanding industry. There are a few people more demanding and more critical of their supply chains than hospital managers. So I was really well taught in a very highly regulated industry around warehousing, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth. So I did that for a few years. And then started to move into the implementation of warehouse management systems, because we were trying to bring more sophistication into the warehouse there. And I worked on a number of iterations of Baxter Healthcare with different systems, an in-house developed system, and then an external package when the product went to JD Edwards, which is still a big ERP. So we worked with a product called DC Link there, and I worked on the implementation for that. And I really learned how to be the bridge person between the operational team and the technical team. So I would sit alongside a programmer, right, a developer, and help him improve the product. And I'd say, well, look, this is how we want to work in the warehouse. And so can you write it, this is physically what's going on. So we need a system that's actually going to support that. So that's really where I cut my teeth. And I've done a lot of that kind of work where I've translated the operational needs of what a business needs to work into, to the technical people who are often a little clueless around the details of what it's like to actually work in a warehouse or run a business or the practicalities of using a system. So that's where I've done a fair bit of that sort of work. But I've also been an operational manager. And after about 15 years or so in the corporate world, I moved into consulting with a consulting firm in Australia as a logistics consultant. Worked around a whole bunch of different businesses there. I did some contracting. I worked for government agencies. Did a lot in that health and pharmaceutical supply chain area. And then once I went out of my own, I started working with smaller businesses, and I've got a real passion for working with small or medium enterprises. So anyone from 2 or 3 people in the warehouse up to, a couple of hundred people with some of the bigger businesses that I've worked with. So Logistics Cloud Co is the product that I've just launched, I'd say relatively recently, because it's been in development for a while. And what I've done with the Logistics Cloud Co, I'm kind of pivoting more towards sales and implementation of software. So taking the expertise that I've learned, that's been hard won as an operational manager of warehousing and distribution businesses, into the software realm to help businesses really improve their operations. And so I work with some established cloud systems like Sin7 and Unleashed, which might be familiar to some of your businesses. They're sort of add-ons onto Xero or QuickBooks to give you like an ERP-like function for a smaller business. And
so the cloud system, the logistic cloud, can be connected to the QuickBooks system. That's what you said, correct?
Well, indirectly through, so we don't connect the warehouse management system, which is this new product, where I have I've partnered with a sophisticated warehouse system, and I've created a version of that product which we've hosted in the cloud. So we've built standardized connections with Shopify, Unleashed, and Sin7, and we'll add more. So we bring in some new integration technology to allow us to connect that to pretty well anything that you might want to connect it to. But that's kind of where we started. And Unleashed and Sin7 will connect through to QuickBooks or Xero, and I think they do some other accounting packages as well. Shopify obviously fits into that ecosystem as well for the web store. And there's a couple of different ways that can actually connect in and work. And then the warehouse management system comes in, and that manages the physical operations of what's going on in the warehouse, whereas things like Sin7 and Unleashed are managing the like your purchase orders and your sales order management, and Shopify is doing the web store, right? And then then at the bottom of all of that, you've got Xero or QuickBooks managing all the dollars and the accounting. And the inventory management piece also helps with the accounting. If you need more detailed control over your inventory costs, so you've got to do landed costs, you've got to do, more complex management of sales orders and purchase orders, and that's where those systems really come into their own. But they're not very good at managing, all of the racking and the locations and thousands of products and complex picking routines and all of those sort of physical things that you've got to do in the warehouse, particularly in e-commerce. That's where the warehouse management system fits into the puzzle.
Yeah, our biggest issue as a sellers, and I can speak from all of us, is basically because we sell multiple marketplaces, let's say Amazon, eBay, Shopify, and we also have the inventory in-house. So there's not a lot of softwares out there that you can manage all those warehouses and know exactly what's going on with the inventory. That is our biggest issue. Is that something that your software can help us with?
So, well, that is a complex problem. So, the way you would go about that is, so the warehouse management system manages a physical warehouse. So if you are so you've got a warehouse and you're managing your own stock, and you're obviously going to be shipping out in bulk to like Amazon or to a marketplace, but you're also going to be doing direct order fulfillment for those marketplaces. Right. Or if you're just selling on Amazon but fulfilling those orders yourself, then you're going to be shipping direct to the customer. So the warehouse management system really helps you manage all of those different physical operations for all of those marketplaces where you are doing that work. The inventory management for the marketplaces and where you hold all of that inventory, that is going to be in your inventory management system. And if you've got stock out at a different site, so you've got stock at Amazon, maybe there's a marketplace which is holding stock for you as well. Or anyone else that's holding stock on your behalf, you're going to track that in your inventory management system. Now, the orders that are going to come into the inventory management system, so you need a connector to connect that inventory system for all of the orders out to those marketplaces. Now, that probably is a bit of a gap for many people at the moment, right? Because you've got to go, well, how do I build that integration? So systems like Sin7, they have a lot of marketplace integrations. So fantastic. They're probably the best inventory system with the best range of standard connectors out to the different marketplaces. But if there's a marketplace that you use or some other kind of distribution channel where there is no standard connector, then you're going to have to build one. And so all of these systems have public APIs. So an API is just a way to integrate one system to another, but they don't, if no one's built that connection, if no one's kind of laid down the pipe that sends the data back and forth, then you're going to have to do that yourself. Now, one of the things I'm currently working on under that Logistics Cloud Co umbrella is developing a capability in-house to quickly and affordably build connections with other systems. Now, I don't have that yet. That's a future development, but it's coming. I think I've found the right partner to work with to help me build that. So those connections are obviously really important. Otherwise, you're going to have to manage those orders manually with spreadsheets and uploads and things, and it's a bit of a pain in the neck. If you can build a connector and it's an affordably priced connector, because sometimes those connections can be just like ridiculously expensive for the 2 minutes that it takes you to upload a spreadsheet into your system. But obviously a connector is better if you can possibly do it. So that's how you solve that complex problem. You've got your marketplaces with connectors, bringing those orders into your inventory system. You have your warehouse system to manage the physical fulfillment of those orders. And then you'll obviously have Shopify or a Magento website or some other kind of web store, which is also connected into that as well.
As far as the placing the purchase orders, it does also process those?
Yes. So the way that works is you've obviously got to buy stock, right? So you need to have some visibility of your inventory, and then you've got to plan those purchases. Maybe they're coming from overseas or local suppliers, doesn't really matter. So that purchase planning process is what goes on in your inventory system. And different inventory systems have different capabilities that built into the product to help you manage that purchasing process. There are also purchasing add-ons that you can get, and possibly the best one that I know of in that category at the moment would be inventoryplanner.com. And that's who just bought them. They were just bought by Sage. So Sage, who long-standing developer of ERP systems for the mid-market, Sage bought a business called Brightpearl. Brightpearl is another inventory system, pretty good one actually. Quite like that, really good for multi-channel retail. We got physical stores as well as online fulfillment. So Sage bought Brightpearl, and Sage have now also bought Inventory Planner, and connecting those two together. Inventory Planner has really quite sophisticated inventory planning tool online. So then that purchase order sits in your inventory system. And then that purchase order also goes through to the warehouse management system, and that is what you receive against. So physically, when you get stock in the warehouse system, you have a mobile device like that, right, with a scanner in it, and that's what drives all of the physical transactions in the warehouse. So you can scan things and receive them, and then get directed to where to put them away in the warehouse. So that's that kind of connection. You've got the purchase planning process where you decide what it is you want to buy, the management of that purchase order, which takes place in the inventory management system, and then the physical receipt of that purchase order in the warehouse system, and you get that confirmation back to the inventory. Because in your inventory system, you need to be able to see, what stock you have, what's on purchase order and what's on sales order, so that you can kind of do the calculations around based on your demand and what you physically have and what you've committed to sell, and then work out what you need to buy. And that's what the inventory system, maybe with an add-on such as Inventory Planner, that's what that will do for you. It will help you manage that purchasing process. And then the warehouse system takes care of the physical management of that stock, tracks it all by bin location in the warehouse, so that you don't lose track of anything physically.
Does it provide you the actual value of every product and total value of the inventory?
Correct. So that's the sophistication of the inventory systems like Unleashed and Sin7 or Brightpearl or any ERP system. It tracks the cost of the inventory, and so usually you'll have like an average cost. So you buy something, and you've got additional costs on anything you buy. There might be freight costs that you've got to add onto it. Maybe you want to add some handling costs in there to truly reflect the cost of that inventory. And so each receipt, you might have a different change, right? Because pricing changes. Sometimes you can get a discount on stock, or you source it from a new supplier, and so the price changes. So prices are constantly changing on the supply of products into your business, and you've got to track that and figure out how much your inventory is actually worth. So that's all happens in the inventory system, and then that'll get fed back into your accounting system to give you an accurate financial balance. The warehouse system just tracks physical quantity of inventory. It doesn't do anything related to cost or dollars. That all happens between the inventory system and the accounting system.
Right. Andrew, what is the cost of this type of software for small businesses?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So basically the further up the furthest kind of down the chain you get in terms of detail, then the higher the cost. So things like Xero are just amazingly great value. You know, they start out at I think $50, $60 a month, like in US dollar terms. It's pretty low cost, and you can add additional users onto that, and it costs you a bit more. But, you know, with Xero, maybe you're spending a couple of $100 a month if you've got a few users, but probably not even that a lot of the time. So, but they're cheap because everybody uses them, right? Every small business in the world can use an accounting system. Inventory systems usually start around $300 or $400 a month, something like that, for sort of, you know, 4 or 5 users. It just depends. So some of them are cheaper, some of them are a bit more expensive, and they will have standard integrations with Xero. So you put those two together, you've got a pretty good business system just with those two things, and obviously you add the web store. The warehouse management system, that is more expensive, right? So that is now I haven't sort of figured out US pricing, but it's around about $100 per user per month, something like that, 100 to 150. And don't hold me this because I don't have US pricing because I haven't established a US operation yet. In Australia, that is $150 to $200 a month, depending upon how many users you have for the cloud system. So it starts at 200 and then it sort of gets cheaper the more users you add on. And so that's a high cost compared to the other systems, but far less businesses use warehouse management systems than use accounting systems. And that's one of the reasons for the cost. You just simply don't sell as much software. Also, the software is it's pretty sophisticated and a bit more niche in terms of the capabilities it has compared to accounting, which is a very standardized application that is widely used. So you start off with sort of relatively low cost for accounting, a bit more for the inventory management, and then it's kind of another jump again for the warehouse management. But because it has such a direct impact on the labor costs of your business, right? It literally saves you. It pays for itself many, many times over because it takes hours or people out of your business because it allows you to operate a lot more efficiently than if you're just trying to walk around a warehouse, you know, that's untracked and do everything just guided by a piece of paper.
Yeah. Piece of paper, it's definitely not a way to do it. How long?
Not for e-commerce, no.
Yeah, e-commerce, it's a lot of movements and the people who in selling products business, it's a lot to manage. Just not even Excel spreadsheet. It's really hard.
You cannot do it. Yeah. If you've got a dozen products, right? No problem. You can manage that on paper. But if you've got thousands, and a lot of businesses have literally thousands of products in their warehouse, there's just no way you can keep track. You need to know where they are, right? Physically, exactly where they are in the warehouse. And you need to know how much is there in each location. And then I don't know how deep you want to go here, but you get into that whole warehouse management piece, right? So that's not just about the system. That is physically how you lay out the warehouse, you know, where you put products in the warehouse, how much you put there. Do you have, you know, dedicated pick locations? And then you get into the fancy picking processes, because if you just go out with a piece of paper, wander around the warehouse, find things and pick one order at a time, come back and pack that and ship that out, then go pick another order, right? That's going to take you forever. Versus you get to, once you have the device in your hand, and you're scanning things, so you're making sure you pick accurately, You can also, on that device, it can guide you and say, go here and pick that, go to the next thing and pick that. But then you get like a trolley where you can fit 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, just depends, right, on exactly how your strategy is. But it is entirely possible to pick 100 small orders at once on a trolley, right, and then bring all those back to the pack and bench and pack and sort and ship them out. So we have a couple of different ways of doing that. So we've got and the two ways you do it, you have a simple multi-order pick where, let's say you pick 5 or 6 orders at once, because that's what you can fit on a trolley. So you have you've got 6 tubs to pack those orders into. So as you go around the warehouse, you pick an item and it'll tell you what tub to put it into. So you pick 2, 1 goes in that tub, 1 goes in that tub. Then you go to the next location. So you're not so much picking an order, but you're picking 6 orders at once, but you're just walking around in sequence through the warehouse, picking things and sorting them to the order as you go. At the end of that process, you've done 1 pass through the warehouse, you picked 6 orders, ready to pack and ship. The other kind of deeper level than that is what's called a multi-batch pick. So in a multi-batch pick, each of those tubs, instead of just containing 1 order, might contain 10 orders, right? 10 small orders, 1 or 2 things. Because as you know, in e-commerce, it's a lot of orders. It's just like 1 or 2 things, maybe 3 things. Because e-commerce orders are typically small. People just go, well, I want 1. That's all I need. So
Right.
that's what you got. Maybe they're ordering sort of 3 or 4. They've got to hit a hurdle to get free shipping, which is what everyone wants. But typically these orders are small. So in a tub, you can fit, not instead of having 1 or 2 things rattling around for an order, you fill it, but now you've actually picked 10 orders into that tub, but it's all jumbled up. Each of that tub, that is a batch of orders. So let's say you've got 6 tubs on your trolley and each one has 10 orders. Now you've picked 60 orders in that path through the warehouse, right? Now you think of the productivity of that compared to just going out and picking 1 thing off a shelf and packing it. Like there's just no comparison. So now you get it back to the packing bench, and now you've got to do an outsort, a sort process. You've got to sort it to each individual order. So again, we part of the application for us in that multi-batch pick process is you pick up an item, you scan it, it says, oh, that's for order number 1. Okay, let's put it there. So you have like a put wall or a shelf or some boxes, whatever, some sort of an arrangement in front of you to sort those 10 orders. You pick the item, scan it, and it tells you which order it goes into. And you just quick, and that process is pretty quick. You just pick it, scan it, order 5, order 2, order 1, order 10, order 1 again, right? And then a minute later, you've sort of sorted out the 10 or 20 things that are in that tub, and now you've got 10 orders fully sorted, ready to pack. So that is, and that process that we do with the warehouse management system is exactly the same physically as what all these big robotic sortation systems do. This is what they're doing. We're just doing it guided by a scanner instead of being guided instead of conveyors and a couple of $1 million later, you've got an Amazon-like warehouse. But most businesses just don't have the scale for that to be viable. Big 3PLs and Amazons and like the really big retailers, they can obviously afford that. And that's one of the reasons why I started Logistics Cloud Co, because I wanted to bring the sophistication and help all of these businesses that are just, having a crack, right? Just trying to make it go with their business, and give them the sophistication of a really good automated software-driven system that they can actually afford, that saves them real time and real labor. So yeah, so that's the quick summary of the value proposition of what these systems do.
Based on your experience, for small business or let's say average business, how long it takes to implement this type of software into their, process?
Yeah, good, really, really, really good question. That depends a lot on how much effort the business puts into it, right? So anyone who's implemented any software of any sort knows that there's a learning curve and that there's real work to do to get that system in, whether it's an accounting system or whether it's a simple inventory system or just Shopify, right? You think about the effort that's required to actually make Shopify, which is great and easy to use, but just to make that work for your business, you've got to go in, you've got to set it up, you've got to have your products ready, you've got to have your pictures taken, so there's real work in doing that. The warehouse system is absolutely no different. So we can do the software bit in a couple of days, right? With, connect it up and get your system set up and all that. But if you don't even have any location numbering, you don't have any labels on your on your warehouse, so we got to map all that map all that out. So it's like going into Shopify. You haven't even got a picture of a product to put up, right? You've got to do the work. So we've got to do the work required to get the software up. We've got to do the connections and set it up and get all users. All that kind of stuff has to be done. Physically, then, well, there might be some stuff to do in your warehouse because it's about, we've got to get the locations labeled with barcodes so that we can scan them. We probably have to set up some pick locations. Maybe physically, we'll sit down and have a conversation and you go, hey, I need to organize my warehouse a bit better. So there's a bit of physical work to do to set up pick locations and just get yourself ready for success physically within the warehouse. So I help businesses through that. That's the sort of thing that I do all the time. And then people have to learn the software. Now, the way the software works is you've got a mobile device, right? So you got the scanner in your hand, and that is going to lead you on a step-by-step workflow. So it's going to take you through each process. So the learning curve is it's easy to learn because it is a step-by-step guided workflow. And you can see exactly where you are in the workflow at any particular time, but you still need to practice that, right? It's like anything. You're not going to go out and be successful at anything unless you've done some training and you've actually had a go a few times, right? So we need to make sure we've got that training in place, that people have learned the system, that they basically know what they're doing. You're not going to get super expert until you actually, turn it on and start using it on an everyday basis, like day in, day out. That's when you become really good at it. But you've still got to do that work. So we have some software set up, we have some physical setup in the warehouse, and then we've got the training to make sure that people know what they're doing. And it's really good if there is, just from the change management perspective, if there's someone there that says, I'm going to be the warehouse system expert and I'm going to learn this system and I'm going to really master it and take it on so that I can develop a lot of expertise in how to use the system. Just like you'd have someone who would be the key person for Shopify or the key person for Xero or the key person for Unleashed, who really knows how to use that software and will often help then, he'll be the go-to person when someone says, well, how do I do this and how do I do that? And then he'll help train them. So we need that local champion who's helping to do the implementation. So how long does that take? At least 4 to 6 weeks. Typically, that's what you would expect, right? So we can, if we've got standard connection built, all of that bit is easy. That's just a couple of days work. But businesses that just can't turn on a dime, right? You've got to do training. You've got to do that after hours probably because you're busy. I mean, like no one's not doing anything in their business. So that process, you just need to allow sufficient time for all of those things to happen. We've got online training and stuff, so people can watch videos of how to use, just like all the software we do. So you can actually work your way through a guided course. Well, I've got an implementation process. I can show you what. Do you want me to show you what that is? I've got a little diagram that describes the implementation. Would that be helpful?
Sure. Just our audience not going to be able to see it much.
Oh, okay. All right. That's right. Because it's an audio podcast. Anyway, so basically it's a 5-step process. So we sit down, we work through a design exercise and just work out what exactly it is we're going to do. Then we go and we build the software bits. You go get some labeling. You've got to buy some hardware. You've got to buy the devices and the scanners and things. And we do the connections of the software. Then we go into the training. And once we're satisfied that the training is complete, so both I have to be convinced that you're ready to go, You have to be convinced that you're ready to go, and we all agree we're ready to start, and then we go, and then, you know, away we go.
Right. Andrew, very, very impressed on your experience in this topic. Would you like to add something else before we wrap it up?
Well, what I would say is that the warehouse management system, right? This new product that I've put a lot of effort into developing for small and medium enterprises. This is not new technology. This has been around in the corporate world and in big business for a long time. And there's a very good reason they use it, because it makes a massive difference to the cost and efficiency of running your warehouse. But it's really not been available for small and medium businesses up until relatively recently. Now, there's a few products out there, and there's a lot of really rubbish products, and there's some that are okay. So, but I don't really know of another business where they've taken what's a tier one large scale warehouse management system and said, let me scale that back, let me make that work and make that available to the small and medium enterprise. Because running a warehouse, the complexity of running a small warehouse is actually as complex or more complex than a lot of global businesses, right? Particularly e-commerce. It's complex.
It is.
So you can't, you put a very basic system in, it just doesn't do the job, right? So I've worked really hard to make that complex, sophisticated software work and as easy to and as possible to use for smaller business. So that's the core ethos of what I'm doing, and it makes a massive difference to the productivity in a warehouse compared to a lot of warehouses where people are wandering around with a piece of paper trying to find things. So it's just so huge, the difference, and so that's my mission, really. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring that technology to as many people as needed.
Very, very appreciated. Andrew, if someone wanna contact you, if they have any questions about the software or about any implementation of the warehouse management system, what would be the best way to contact you?
So you can contact me on my website, logisticscloudco.com.
Okay.
I'm also on LinkedIn under the Logistics Optimizer that's my personal brand on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter as at LogisticsAndrew.
Okay.
So you can message me on Twitter as well. They would probably be the main ways, but through the website, logisticscloudco.com would be, fill in the contact form and contact me through there. That's probably the simplest, easiest way to get in touch.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to sit down and chat.